They have now run one Gaza doc and then pulled it. It's nowhere to be seen because apparently it was the child of a Hamas minister bullshit argument. And now they didn't even air the other Gaza documentary. And then add that to all of the rest of the...
I'm still struggling to really grasp and understand, like, how much money and power via money, you know, I guess, does Israel really hold? Because the world doesn't talk. Well, I mean, I might be being too ridiculous about it, but the nature of the war crimes, the nature of the war, the things that Israel has done, there are not enough people in high places and positions of power talking about it. And the people that do talk about it, like, are almost immediately silenced or immediately met with some sort of consequences. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna have to keep looking into it. But outside of money and, you know, the potential, I guess, for you know, spycraft and things of that nature, like people have said, like, oh, maybe they, you know, maybe they're holding a bunch of dirt on other, but you gotta admit, like, they don't got dirt on every single country in the world or whatever. So what else could it be? If y'all know something or can point me in the direction, like I said, I'm gonna keep looking into it, but I'm not really seeing all the glaring evidence, you know what I mean, to understand why is it nobody is willing to say anything negative about Israel. What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Trey.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Back at it with another video.
Another one.
Today I'm be showing y'all a video from Breaking Points, but it's featuring Mehdi Hasan. I came across, it's an older video, but I just came across it recently, and, you know, I wanted to share it with y'all because it's really a kind of eye-opener on how jacked up Israel has been acting as far as this war between them and the Palestinian or Hamas, you know, however you want to package the conflict that's been going on over there, and just, you know, how foul they have been going about their tactics. Without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into this one. Oh, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Obviously, I'm a new YouTuber, so it really means a lot. And for everybody that has subscribed and everybody that's participating in the comment section, appreciate y'all. Love the support. And let's get into the video.
Many months, the BBC has been embroiled in a controversy in which it has been refusing to air a documentary that kind of took on a life of its own inside the organization, as the journalists there have been demanding to know what happened to an investigation that the BBC had commissioned into Israel's war on medical professionals and the entire kind of medical community inside of Gaza. That controversy now resulted in the documentary being acquired by Mehdi Hasan and Zeteo News for its worldwide distribution, and by Channel 4 inside the UK for its UK distribution. So Mehdi's joining us now to talk about this documentary and also the process that led up to it being censored and now being finally released last night. Mehdi, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And I wanted to start just by honoring several of the medical professionals who have been killed in this genocide. If we could put up, I believe it is C3, Dropsite posted this yesterday. This is a picture from a graduation ceremony at the Faculty of Medicine in Gaza. 4 of the people that you're looking at in this photo, Dr. Omar Farwana, who was the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh, who was head of orthopedic surgery at Al-Shifa Medical Complex, Dr. Rafat Lubad, who was the head of internal medicine at Al-Shifa, and also then this week was the killing of Dr. Marwan Al-Sultan, who was the director of the Indonesian hospital and a cardiologist. So in that photo, four of them have been assassinated. Several, targeted at their homes. Not collateral damage from attacks on fighters or caught in crossfire, but
So, just to reiterate, this is Israel assassinating doctors. Like, not just, we already, had been exposed to the fact they were bombing innocent women and children. They are actively assassinating doctors. They get deeper into it, but this is who we are currently fighting a war with and supporting. Our politicians do not want to say anything negative. Like, anybody that speaks ill of Israel is anti-Semitic in some way, shape, or form, right? But these are the tactics they're employing in their war. This is crazy. I was not aware they were doing this.
I want you to talk about the targeting of
Yes.
medical professionals, because that is what I think people don't understand, because it sounds so insane to say it out loud. That
It sounds insane to
professionals-
say it
yeah.
out loud. I mean, three things I think sound insane over the last 21 months, 22 months that we've normalized. One, obviously, is the deliberate killing of journalists, which a lot of journalists in the West have a lot of problem comprehending. The other is the deliberate killing of children, of course. Gunshot wounds to the head, sniper shots, not collateral damage. And of course, the third is the doctors, the killing of doctors, nurses, paramedics, the deliberate targeting and destruction of Gaza's healthcare. And that is what the premise, that was the basis of this film is. And this film, produced by award-winning filmmakers at Basement Films in the UK, made over several months, went through rigorous checks, went through the BBC editorial process for much of it, right of reply, fantastic lead reporter, Ramita Navai, award-winning war correspondent. And they put together this film, this hour-long film, based on eyewitness testimony.
Y'all not going to believe the reason why they shelved it.
From Palestinian doctors and survivors, as well as Dr. Adnan al-Baruch, who you just mentioned. He's in this film, but he's since been killed in Israeli captivity, tortured and died in prison, killed in prison, as one of his colleagues says. So you've got eyewitness testimony from Palestinian doctors to what they have had to endure. We also have an Israeli medic whistleblower in the film who served at State Taman, the Israeli gulag, the prison, the black site where they've taken Palestinian detainees to be tortured, raped, killed. So it's all there, put together in the film. And you mentioned, the targeting of doctors, saying it out loud. Perhaps the most powerful moment for me in the film, and we just, I would urge Breaking Point's viewers to go to the Zeteo Twitter feed or Zeteo Blue Sky. We actually put up a clip from the film last night, separate to the trailer, which is one of the most powerful moments in the film, from Dr. Khalid Hamouda, who is a surgeon in Gaza, now in Egypt, who was bombed in his home with his family, a family of other doctors. At first, 10 people killed. They then flee, him, his wife, his child, and they go down the street. By the way, his house is blown up, not the entire street, just his house. They then go down the street to take refuge, and a drone follows them down the street and attacks them again. And he wakes up in a hospital and sees a nurse carrying his child, his daughter, who's dead. The next morning, his wife, the mother of his child, is also dead. He's told, killed.
Now, I think it's plain as day how ridiculous any defense of Israel's actions in this war, this, whether you call it a genocide, whatever the case may be. Obviously, war crimes are being committed. I don't give a shit like how much we need them as allies in the region. You cannot continue to support these kind of people that would do something like this. The fact that we not only are supporting them, but we have our politicians, both Democratic and Republican, that are afraid. Like, you can see how uncomfortable like people get when you bring up Israel and genocide and how they're fighting and killing the Palestinians and how they've gone about it. Like, this is the first time. Well, I've heard about them, obviously killing innocent civilians, children, and things of that nature. But targeting doctors for assassinations and conducting targeted strikes on doctors in that area, I was not really aware of. And that just goes to show you, like, I know, there was reporting done previously about how, people were going into Gaza, like doctors were going into doctors to provide aid and medical care because, there weren't many hospitals still around, and there obviously weren't as many doctors. But I didn't really know the ins and outs and the reasoning why. So this is sad to see. And like I said, it's one of those reasons why I wanted to share it.
He's the only survivor, or one of the only survivors, I believe, from that massacre. And she says, Ramita Navai, you were targeted? He says, yes. Drone came and targeted us. And this is what we heard from the World Central Kitchen folks when they were in the humanitarian convoy and they were targeted car to car to car. This is what we've heard from journalists, of course. And this is what we have to get our heads around, that the United States of America has been arming and funding a country that is systematically, this is a key word here, destroying the Gaza healthcare system, destroying doctors and medics. And the key point here, and it comes out in the film, you could rebuild hospitals in years to come. Trump can turn Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East and build as many hospitals as he like. You cannot rebuild that knowledge base. You cannot rebuild that human base. You cannot just get doctors back over. Gazan society, Palestine has spent years educating itself in this way, and the Israelis have deliberately targeted it.
Well, let's take a look at the trailer. This is C1 to get a sample of what people can expect from the film.
He got injured. They shot at us at the operative room.
Israel has been killing the very people trying to keep the healthcare system alive, its doctors and medics, despite hospitals and healthcare workers being protected under international law. As Israel has bombed Gaza, hundreds of Palestinian doctors and medics have refused to leave their hospitals.
We are in the theater, in the operating room. Full darkness, no water, no electricity. But we have a hero, surgeons in Gaza.
Hundreds of medics have been killed. Hundreds have been detained. Many of them have been forcibly disappeared. Our Palestinian team on the ground have gathered testimony from health workers and their families.
المهم علقوني في قلب زي المعلقين هذول كلهم معلقين علقني كله بنزف دم.
And Israeli whistleblowers have told us they witnessed Palestinian prisoners being tortured, and that some Israeli medics are complicit.
I don't even think that in the Israeli society there is a need for cover-up these days. You can do almost whatever you want when it comes to Gazans.
And I think, at this point, not we as Americans, the people of America, but politicians, they're complicit. Like, when you know that this is happening and you won't speak out against it, you won't make it a point to deny funding, what are you really saying? Like I said, just look at how people act whenever it comes up as a topic of conversation. It's sickening.
Well, one of the things people can see, Mehdi, is that this is a high production value film. And the BBC funded this film. The BBC then refused to air it and was giving quote unquote bullshit reasons, according to a source who told that to The Independent. And Mehdi, you have probably a lot of insight into this process of why the BBC, which had recently aired the Louis Theroux documentary, I believe that was on BBC. Yes. What happened? What's your understanding of why they ended up getting rid of a film that they funded?
So the BBC put out a very long statement, a bullshit statement, I would argue as well. Their argument was that they had this other documentary that they aired on Gaza, which became super controversial, I would argue, for unnecessary reasons. It was narrated by a child in Gaza surviving the war, and it turns out the child was the son of a deputy agriculture minister in the Gaza government, some technocrat, who was then labeled, of course, as just Hamas. And there was a huge furor in the UK that the BBC had put out a film for the child of a Hamas minister, even though, again, it was a well-sourced, well-made, high-production value film. The child had not decided the editorial agenda. But while they were, quote-unquote, investigating how that happened, they decided to park this film, which, as you say, they'd spent a lot of money on, spent many months making, with Basement Films, who we at Zeteo know well because they made a film for us last year called Israel's Real Extremism, which I came on the show to talk about, if memory serves me correctly then. And the fundamental argument for the BBC was, well, Basement Films went out and talked about the process while we were still trying to get everything approved. They then put out, Basement were frustrated, of course. My friend Ben DePere, who's the executive producer, former head of Channel 4 News, very respected, award-winning journalist. He went out at the Sheffield Documentary Festival and said, come on, this is ridiculous. We've got doctors in the film waiting for this film to come out. We're showing disrespect to people who risk their lives to talk to us. Sources, whistleblowers, survivors of massacres. The BBC put out a statement saying, well, if we put it out now, there will be the perception of partiality, and the BBC can't have the perception of partiality. The great irony being, of course, that their decision not to air this film that they commissioned, that ran through their checks, that is the greatest perception of partiality. It's partiality towards Israel. They have now run one Gaza doc and then pulled it. It's nowhere to be seen because apparently it was the child of a Hamas minister bullshit argument. And now they didn't even air the other Gaza documentary. And then add that to all of the rest of the...
I'm still struggling to really grasp and understand, like, how much money and power via money, I guess, does Israel really hold? Because the world doesn't talk. Well, I mean, I might be being too ridiculous about it, but the nature of the war crimes, the nature of the war, the things that Israel has done, there are not enough people in high places and positions of power talking about it. And the people that do talk about it, like, are almost immediately silenced or immediately met with some sort of consequences. So, yeah, like I said, I'm gonna have to keep looking into it. But outside of money and, the potential, I guess, for spycraft and things of that nature, like people have said, like, oh, maybe they're holding a bunch of dirt on other, but you got to admit, like, they don't got dirt on every single country in the world or whatever. So what else could it be? If y'all know something or can point me in the direction, like I said, I'm gonna keep looking into it, but I'm not really seeing all the glaring evidence, you know what I mean, to understand why is it nobody is willing to say anything negative about Israel.
Coverage of the BBC's of Gaza over the last 21, 22 months, which has been abysmal, which has caused multiple internal backlashes, protests from BBC staff who are frustrated at what their broadcaster has done. This is a BBC that has been cowed, intimidated, pressured, bullied. This is a BBC. I used to work at the BBC. I used to defend the BBC when I worked in the UK from right-wing bullshit attacks. But I think I've never seen in my entire lifetime, I'm about to turn 46 years old, in my entire lifetime of watching the BBC, I've been watching the BBC since children's cartoons on a Saturday morning, and I can honestly say it's never taken a beating like this. I've never had such a depressing, disappointing view of the national broadcast in the UK that I've had since October 2023. I know many other people who've stopped watching the BBC, stopped appearing on the BBC, because their coverage has been so shameful, not just in the documentary space, but in the news space, the online space, the ridiculous headlines. There was a study by the Center for Media Monitoring recently, which said they give 33 times as much coverage per Israeli casualty as they do per Palestinian casualty. So there's not a perception of partiality. There's a well-documented evidence of partiality towards Israel.
And I want to linger on that point and connect it to the point that you made about the original controversy that then put this documentary on ice. Trying to imagine a world in which a documentary was made about the difficulties faced by Israeli children in the war, which are non-trivial, often headed to bomb shelters, which is absolutely, even if nothing happens, it's traumatizing for a child to have to hide somewhere with their family in the dark, worried that they might get hit by a bomb. Like, that alone is traumatizing. So let's say that the BBC commissioned a documentary focused on the way that the war was affecting children. And then it turned out that the boy's father worked for the Ministry of Agriculture in Israel. And they pulled the documentary and apologized and investigated.
Never would happen.
And investigated how that could happen. How could you possibly have aired the...
We can all admit that that's a bullshit reason to pull a documentary, right? Like, But yeah, no, that's the excuse they gave, and that shit flies, man. That is insane.
Thoughts of a child whose father works for the Ministry of Agriculture in Israel. That, to me, kind of tells you everything you need to know about the way that the BBC approached this. So how difficult was it to kind of pry this out of the BBC, or were they like, thank you, Mehdi? Like, we're so...
They were like, yeah, we didn't want to touch this at all. Thank you. Once we seen what they had and what they had put together and how the documentary turned out, we did not want to air this. We knew there was no way we were going to be able to air this without whoever is pulling the strings in Israel having something to say about it. So yeah, we'll give it up willingly. Like, we don't want to touch this at all. Thank you. Here, you can have it.
So glad to be done with this controversy.
So the heavy lifting was done by Ben DePere at Basement Films, who made this film, sweat and blood in this film, spent a long time in back and forths with the BBC. And, he runs an independent production company. It's very risky for him to pick a fight with one of the biggest broadcasters in the world, which commissions his stuff. So props to my friend Ben, really, for believing in this film and saying, look, I want it out there. Doesn't matter if I screw up my relationship with people. Doesn't matter if I lose money on this. I want it out there. And the BBC did sit on it for a while and weren't going to release it, as far as I'm aware. And eventually they did release it, partly because of Ben's cajoling, partly because I think they just wanted to be done with it. And then us and Channel 4 were able to come in and say, well, we're going to give it a platform. I knew from the moment they benched it, like, if this film becomes available, I was messaging Ben saying, we want a platform. This is what Zeteo was created for, right? To give these voices to the world, to try and platform these voices. We know, Ryan, you and I, that the right have been arguing about cancel culture for decades, and yet the single biggest victims of cancel culture are Palestinians and supporters of the Palestinian movement and journalism about Palestine and academia about Palestine. And that has been a fundamental issue. We've seen that in this conflict. And I think that was a frustrating issue where the BBC were not airing it and were not releasing it. And the moment they released it, we moved fast, and props to Channel 4, broadcaster in the UK, for running it. Because again, Ryan, you say Hamas and everything shuts down. All critical faculty shut down, even amongst smart, liberal, progressive folks. And if you're able to say anything's Hamas, then that's what you're able to throw at it. And I'm sure people will throw that at this film as well. One thing I took great pride in doing was the BBC put out a statement saying, this is not our film anymore. That's true. It's not their film anymore. We made a few changes. One of the changes we made is we took out all references to the Hamas-run health ministry. We call it the Gaza Ministry of Health in this film. That in itself is a propagandistic and loaded phrase, as you well know, because it allows people to then cast doubt on the deaths and torture of Palestinians. And we have eyewitness.
You can say Hamas about everything, and all of a sudden you have justification. Like, Hamas was so powerful, they were just running everything when it was never the case.
There's accounts of this film from people who have nothing to do with Hamas about that suffering. Just one quick story that your viewers might be interested in that I heard recently from someone else. You talk about kind of imagine if this was the other way around. A production company, I'm told, went to a major American broadcaster at the start of this conflict, at the start of the genocide, and had a story about a Palestinian family just to kind of follow them around and the suffering they were going through and the number of members of the family who'd been killed. And the American broadcaster said, we'll run it, but first let us go and find an Israeli family so we can balance it, and we'll run both stories. A few weeks later, they came back to the production company and said, well, we can't find an Israeli family that suffered like the Palestinian family you showed us. Therefore, we're not running your story. Not we'll just run yours, but we won't run anything now because we can't do this fake bullshit balance.
Right, and it would have looked worse if you tried to do the balance, because you'd see.
So they just dropped the whole thing.
Right.
This is what happens. Palestinian voices are silenced.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing about the BBC's position here is they're not disputing any facts in the film or any of the journalism, right, Mehdi? They aren't disputing the quality of the journalism. They're not even saying that it didn't meet their editorial standards, which is a pretty usual excuse.
Yep, not at all. And I think they're hiding behind this bullshit phrase, perception of partiality. So it's not even, and by the way, Emily, they're not even saying it's a biased film. They're saying if we run it now, people will say that we are biased to one side and we are scared of.
Exactly. They need to be able to find some kind of a fluff piece to run on Israel if they're going to talk negatively about Israel, which is, yeah.
people being the pro-Israel lobby, and therefore we're not going to put it out. I mean, look, the people who've made this film have won Oscars and Emmys. The reporter, Ramita Navai, is of Iranian descent, has done films all about Iran's human rights abuses. She's traveled around the world. The credibility of these people cannot be questioned. I'm sure it will be questioned by bad faith actors. And yet, this is where we've reached now. In the name of protecting Israel, wittingly or unwittingly, we've burned down international law and we've burned down journalistic credibility. We've burned down so many institutions which will not survive the last 22 months.
So, Mehdi, where can people go to find this?
So they can go to find this at gazadoctors.film. That's the website we set up for this film specifically, or zeteo.com. It is available to paid subscribers for now. People will say, well, why not put it out for free to the world? Well, because the people behind this film spent a lot of time and money making this film. And I just want to remind people that a free press isn't free. High quality journalism requires investment. If you really want documentaries that are going to win awards and report on the ground and break stories, then we really have to support it financially. I'm proud that Zeteo is financially supporting this film. It costs a lot of money, Ryan, Emily, as you know. Documentaries cost a lot, and therefore we are airing it to our paid subscribers. I urge people to become a paid subscriber. If you become a monthly subscriber, it's less than the cost of going to the movie theater to watch a film. And this film is more important than any other film you're going to see this year, including the F1 movie, which I loved. But this movie is more important.
It is true. Journalism is expensive, and documentaries are particularly so. The travel, the sophistication that goes into
the legaling.
The legaling. Oh my God! Don't even get me started on the legaling. Well, Mehdi, thank you so much for joining us, and congrats on this acquisition. I'm glad that.
So that is the end of that one. Like I said, let me know if y'all already knew about this. I haven't checked out the doc yet. I'm gonna try and watch it this weekend. But I am gonna watch it. Like I said, when I stumbled across the video, I didn't know to this extent that this was happening, so I definitely want to see what they reported on in the documentary. Like I said, Breaking Point's one of my go-to news sources, independent media. Definitely appreciate Mehdi Hassan. Dude is smart and is thorough. And yeah, no, I appreciate Zeteo and what they produce over there as well. Yeah, but y'all let me know in the comments. Did y'all already know? What are y'all thoughts like on how Israel is able to kind of get away with all of these things? But yeah, if y'all haven't already, please subscribe, like the video, share if it's something that was new to you so we can get the word out there. But yeah, until next time, I'll holla at you.
I don't think you wanna be my enemy. I pop out, they go wild, so celebrity. Too busy winning, not